The idea that the Taliban would take over was premised on the notion that somehow the 300,000 troops we had trained and equipped was going to just collapse. They were going to give up. I don't think anybody anticipated that. The consensus was that it was highly unlikely that in 11 days they'd collapse and fall and the leader of Afghanistan would flee the country. The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated. So what's happened? Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country.
Well, that was President Biden saying no one predicted the fall of Afghanistan would happen so quickly. But that's pretty suspicious when less than 4 weeks before the fall of Afghanistan, on July 23rd, Biden and Afghan President Ghani shared a phone call where Joe urged President Ghani to demonstrate a more capable military defense and to change the perception as the Taliban made significant gains. Well, let's take a look at the transcript from the phone call. I need not tell you the perception that things aren't going well in terms of the fight against the Taliban. And there's a need, whether it's true or not, there is a need to project a different picture. Joe, if you thought the U.S. troop withdrawal was going to go smoothly in Afghanistan, why urge President Ghani to lie? Joining us now to answer that question, former White House Chief of Staff and Senior Partner at the Conservative Partnership Institute, Mark Meadows. We also have Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School University and author of Guilt by Association, Alan Dershowitz. Mark, I want to go to you first. I mean, we've seen a president be impeached over a phone call. Is this any different?
Well, obviously this is different, but I'll leave it up to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Dershowitz, who will give you the constitutional requirements. But let me just tell you what we do know. What we do know is that it was an intentional decision on behalf of President Biden to leave Americans behind. And we know that he had the intelligence that would suggest that not only was the Afghan government following, but at that particular point, he encouraged a foreign leader to project and lie to support his lie that he didn't know about it. And the reason I know that is, I mean, we had plenty of intel. This was not a failure of intelligence because we had intelligence back when I was in the White House that would suggest that there was real problems coming. I can tell you there's a strong demand. I've been across the country and people are furious because of 13 soldiers that lost their lives because of an intentional decision that the president had made. And quite frankly, they are calling for impeachment.
I mean, so, Mr. Dershowitz, or Professor Dershowitz, my thing here is, like, you're obviously a very accomplished lawyer. You've been in the courtroom for 2 impeachment trials. The President of the United States encouraged a foreign leader to lie on behalf of him to encourage something. Is this grounds for impeachment?
No, not to principled Republicans who opposed impeachment based on the phone call that President Trump made to the leader of Ukraine. I opposed that impeachment, and I would impose this impeachment. It might be a good reason for deciding not to vote for President Biden in the next election or Democrats in the next election. But the Constitution specifically requires criminal-type behavior. Treason, bribery, other high crimes and misdemeanors. Treason is specifically defined in the Constitution. It just doesn't meet the constitutional criteria. Now, you know, hypocrisy is rampant in Washington, not with Mark Meadows. He's a very principled man. But there are some Republicans who strongly oppose the impeachment of Trump who would now welcome. And they say, look, the Democrats impeached him, but 2 constitutional wrongs does not make a constitutional right. I was opposed to both.
Yeah. So, Mark, we have more of this phone call between Biden and President Ghani. The president, again, talked to Mr. President, we are facing a full-scale invasion composed of Taliban, full Pakistani planning and logistical support, and at least 10 to 15,000 international terrorists, predominantly Pakistanis, thrown into this. So it's clear that President Ghani warned Biden about the Taliban and how bad it was and where it was coming from, and it was coming from also Pakistan, a nuclear power. How does someone just ignore this serious warning if they even care about America?
Well, you can't ignore this kind of warning, and quite frankly, it's the kind of decisions that General Milley and Secretary Austin have projected that they didn't see this coming. I can tell you that's just not only a false statement, but it is at best starting to border on a cover-up to suggest that somehow they were surprised by this. I can tell you that that is not the case. Right. They knew full well that when they made the decision to not provide air support for the Afghan governments, they knew that. I mean, I've had it come out of General Milley's lips before while we were in the White House. And so here's what we do need from President Biden. We need full transparency. He needs to come clean on what he knows, when he knew it, and quite frankly, when he made the mistake, he needs to apologize to the American people instead of trying to blame someone else for a decision and quite frankly, something that could have been totally avoided.
That's I think the key that he's missing here is if he just came out and apologized, it wouldn't be perfect. It would be a lot better though. So I got about 30 seconds left, Professor. What if any are the legal consequences for him encouraging a foreign leader to lie on behalf of a failed policy?
Well, there are no legal consequences. There are political consequences. When the framers debated impeachment, some of them thought there should be impeachable consequences for maladministration. But James Madison said no, and that was defeated. And instead, we made it almost impossible to impeach and remove. That's why we never have impeached and removed a sitting president. The option is political, not legal.
Wow. Well, there you go. Mark Meadows, Professor Dershowitz, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
All right.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.